Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Weekly Wisdom with me, Sam, the Stoic teacher. If it's your first time here, I'm a philosophy and theology graduate from the University of Cambridge, and I now have the pleasure of teaching philosophy and religious studies in South London. In Weekly Wisdom, we look at ancient wisdom for modern times. Now this week is a special edition with the man who has changed my life more than any other living man, and embarrassingly, I told him this when I interviewed him. Donald Robertson wrote a book called Stoicism and the Art of Happiness that I discovered back in 2017 when I was deeply unhappy. I weighed 322 pounds, which is 23 stone, and I was morbidly obese, and quite frankly, my life was at risk. Discovering his book introduced me to the philosophy of Stoicism and resulted in me losing over 100 pounds of weight in 6 months. In the series of videos featuring Donald, we'll discuss topics ranging from the Stoic response to coronavirus, to whether Jordan Peterson is a Stoic, to what Donald Trump and Boris Johnson could learn from the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, and you're really in for a treat. Without further ado, let's roll the intro and get going with some more ancient wisdom for modern times. Thank you for joining me.
Strength, perseverance, self-control.
Marcus sounds like a very inspirational leader. In fact, I feel disrespectful calling him Marcus Aurelius, the emperor. Is there, from what you've said, it sounds like world leaders can learn a lot from him. Are there any world leaders that you think emulate Marcus Aurelius in any way? Is there anyone you're fond of in the current global political sphere? Or also, are there leaders who you think would benefit from learning from Marcus Aurelius' example?
I can't really think of anyone. I'm not informed enough about international politics to be able to identify leaders that I think would really consistently, act in a way that resonates with Mark. I mean, it's easy to look at. Are you asking me whether Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, for example? I was on a kind of Republican TV show once, and they asked me a question like that, and I just dodged answering it. So I thought, I could see one of the hosts, I could see in one of the hosts' eyes. They were like, or maybe change the subject. And I was like, clearly, even if you're a big fan of Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, I think it's very hard to imagine that their behaviour. I try not to be partisan. I usually try and avoid political conversation, but I think it's surely self-evident that a lot of the things that Donald Trump says on Twitter are very far removed from the way that Marcus Aurelius conducted himself as emperor.
Yeah, because before we cut out, we were at the juiciest bit. Mm-hmm. It was so juicy. You said, I don't think anyone can say that Boris Johnson and Donald Trump ... And I was here thinking, oh yes, this is the juicy one.
They're not. I think it's fair to say they're not. They're not. No one is going to hold them up as Stoic exemplars, surely. But maybe some people would. General Mattis is really into the Stoics, but he resigned from the Trump administration. I don't know. I mean, like a lot of politicians today probably have more in common with Commodists. They do. They like Marcus. The way that actually, let me be boring about this for a minute, right? So Roman emperors have a choice. As their position doesn't have the kind of absolute security and authority that people normally assume. I can't remember what the statistic, like a third of them or something were assassinated. So they don't actually have as much power as people sometimes assume. And in order to maintain power, the emperor has to have the support of the military, the Senate, or the people of Rome, right? Like one or the other. Like if you've really got the military behind you, then you can kind of intimidate the Senate and stuff. Or, maybe you don't really have the military, but the Senate are totally behind you, so you've got this kind of political power. And sometimes that's kind of split because of that. But Marcus mainly had the Senate behind him. And Antoninus Pius, right from the outset, was highly regarded. The Senate loved him, and they saw Marcus as a kind of, a kind of mini-me or whatever of Antoninus Pius. Really Like he was Antoninus Pius Jr. And so they loved Marcus as well. And then Marcus became really popular, gradually became really popular with the military as well. Well, Commodus blew that, like in, what's the expression? You know, like in one grand sweeping gesture. He just blew that completely. He abandoned the entire northern campaign and just bribed the enemy. And so the military lost all respect for him. And the Senate, for whatever reason, thought he was an idiot. Like, I mean, we can tell that because it's mainly senators that sort of write the histories. So Cassius Dio and like whoever the authors that contributed to the sources for and Herodian, like they all just think Commodus is the worst, as we say today. Like clearly, they just think. I mean, what's his name? Joaquin Phoenix is like would be preferable. In the movie Gladiator, like the actual Commodus, they seem to have thought was even worse than that. And so, like, what Commodus had to do is the strategy that the emperors like that employ is they try and become celebrities. Like, so they throw loads of money at public games and they sprinkle gold dust on their hair and they try and be like Jennifer Aniston or something. And they they try and get themselves on the cover of magazines, and they try, you know, like the modern equivalent would be like. So this is Commodus. Like he has statues of him built dressed like Hercules, which is even the Romans thought was crazy. Like, and he tries to build this kind of cult of personality around himself as a celebrity, because he thinks that's going to stabilize his authority, despite the fact that the Senate think he's an idiot and the army think he's a coward. And it doesn't work, right? It doesn't last that long before there are multiple assassination attempts on him, and eventually they succeed in offing him. But the moral of the story is that it's a very superficial kind of, like, you can get a kind of quick fix in terms of popularity through populism, but it's not very stable. Like, you know, the crowd are fickle, like, and they'll turn against you eventually. Like, gradually people see through it. You know, kind of, there's more stability that comes, like, by people, you know, approaching the role of being a ruler more seriously. But that's what Commodus and Nero clearly did. You know, they thought it was all about, you know, doing the ancient equivalent of Twitter, like, and you know, trying to grab as many headlines as possible and just saying, like, the sophists kind of, this is exactly how they thought. You know, it's all about grabbing heads, but grabbing attention. It's about getting literally the biggest round of applause that you can from a crowd. Just tell them whatever they want to hear. You know, like, it's just populism. That's what Socrates thought was the problem with the sophists. The sophists did that in philosophy. He said, look, you guys stand up in front of crowds of thousands of people, like, and you talk about virtue and philosophy. But the problem is, you'll just say whatever gets the biggest round of applause from the audience, right? And, you know, like, if you say stuff and they boo, how high fees are you can charge and how big a round of applause you can get, and you'll never get to truth or wisdom that way. That was Socrates' beef with the sophists, basically. But then that permeates the political arena as well, right down to the present day. And so, you know, we get the politicians we deserve. Like, we get reality TV stars and whatnot, and they do exactly what you'd expect them to do, which is just say whatever they can grab the most attention, even if it doesn't make any sense. And often everybody knows that works in the media, like, you can get headlines easily just by being contrarian, right? So if you just say, like, the opposite of what everyone else is saying, even if it's crazy and totally inconsistent of you'll get, like, the oxygen of publicity from that, just because you're being different. And, you know, a lot of people make a career out of doing that in journalism. Like, but, you know, some politicians do that as well. Like, you know, so more for us if we vote for them.
So Boris and Trump are the modern day Commodus and Nero.
Your words, not mine. Maybe, but possibly.